Good evening to Detroit in Black and White, our Wednesday evening edition. Today we have Allan Lengel, Deadline Detroit, Washington Post, and Jim Nardone, the former police chief of Trenton Police Department, who just got back from Florida, the great sunny state, beautiful weather
It was nice.
here. Now I don't know if Adolph or Erica are logging on or not. But anyway, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, good evening, Dwella. Oh, I forgot to say this. Listen,
Everybody else, yeah.
right. Hey, y'all. Hey, Queen Bee. For all that are watching, we want you to like, subscribe, and share. Tell your friends about it. Like, subscribe, and share, and join in the chat. So, what do you want to chat about?
Well, we had Governor Whitmer went to Washington today with Representative Hall to try to plead her case to try to get the president to back off on car tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
He did not back down on that. He did compliment her, which they used to go back and forth. Which I don't have, I don't have any problem with her opening channels of communication so long as she also feels okay to criticize if there's something that's bad for the citizens of Michigan, which won the tariffs. I mean, we saw the stock market. People's 401ks and their retirement accounts and anyone who owns stock. And there's a lot of retirement accounts that are connected to the stock market. And bonds and all that stuff, they've been going down. They've been sinking. And so finally, the Republicans are going crazy. And finally, Trump put a pause on a lot of the extreme tariffs going on. And the market went up. I can't remember what the final thing was. It was up 2,200 points.
So what happened? I was confused today. So tell me what. So he did back down a little bit, or
he paused? Yeah, he put a pause. I think the bottom line, the 10% tariffs are still in place, but he didn't back down from the car tariffs. He didn't back down from China tariffs, but nonetheless, the stock market, the people in the stock market saw that as a positive sign. It went up. Probably it could have been the highest it's ever gone up. It's just going out of whack. And we start to see that there's not a lot of planning going on into this thing. And even Elon Musk has now come out and criticized the tariffs. And so I don't know where we're going to end up with that. But what it is the whole world, all the markets in the world are just going crazy. They're being spastic. And I think there has to be more thought to it. And you're starting to see some Republicans who are pushing back and saying maybe Congress needs to have more oversight on the tariffs. Maybe we need some bills to assure that we have some control. We can put the brake on it when we see the world going down the drain. So
it looks like it's the end of Elon Musk in the Trump administration. So he's going to be back to a popular guy with the liberal circle. We're going to see what's going to happen. I give Elon Musk credit for having the courage to call out Peter Navarro and the Trump administration. You have to give him, whether you like him or hate him, whether he's on your good side or bad side, you have to give Elon Musk some credit for standing up and saying this is just crazy what they're doing. So.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's it's heartening. But there are senators too who are standing up now and saying, look, there was some Congress member who said they normally get 50 calls a day from constituents. They were getting thousands a day.
They should get them.
People are freaking out. It's a retirement funds. Like I say, there's a lot of the common people who do not have money in the stock market, but our retirement accounts or whatever it is tied to the stock market, to investments.
I think we should talk about that a little bit. I think we should talk about how it affects everyday people.
And so I think that's the key. Generally we think like, oh, the stock market, here's all the wealthy. The wealthy people are in the stock market and they're getting killed. But like I say, there are a lot of retirement funds all around the country, whether it's police, fire, teachers unions, whatever, that are tied to. I mean, I have a retirement fund through the Washington Post, and it's gone haywire with this. I mean, it's plummeted in the last week and a half or so. I mean, so I think it's, look, when it starts costing people money, people are okay saying, okay, deport the guys to Venezuela. That doesn't affect me. Okay, fire the FBI officials, fire the Justice Department officials. Oh, I don't think that affects me. But then suddenly, the farmers, they're cutting off, U.S. aid. I have a friend who works for, what is it, Forgotten Harvest, where, because of the U.S. aid being cut off, some of the farm money and products are not coming into to feed people who are in need and stuff. So people don't understand like the tentacles of it all.
Well, listen, I want to cut in right now. Eric, Joe Cool, hello, Bridget Huff, hello, Dewayla, Queen B. Eric Brown says, not the first time that the stock market has went through a bad time. People have very short memories. Once again, Trump derangement syndrome. That is his opinion.
Why isn't he on this side? Why isn't he on this side of the camera? Is what
I have no idea.
Our dear friend.
Yeah, I have no idea. But what I'm going to say is this. People should be pissed off. People should be alarmed. People should have feelings about this. By the same token, this guy said he was going to do what he's doing. We say as people, I'm saying in general, we want our elected officials to stick by what they said that they're going to do. If they promise to do something, we want them to do it. It seems to me that these very same people that are going haywire about the stock market and so on and so forth are the same people who said, hey, we support this person. So guess what? For me, I don't have any stock, so it doesn't affect me one way or the other. Okay. So quite frankly, I don't care.
Well, we all should care. Sorry.
I don't.
I'm going to follow up on something Allan said. And I think people fail to realize the significance of the stock market on our world. And I'll just say, the reason I think it's relevant today is Sean Fain, the president of the UAW, said he doesn't care either, right? He said that it's the fat cats on Wall Street. It's not the everyday people. Well, let me tell you something. He represents General Motors. General Motors went bankrupt in 2009. You know why General Motors went bankrupt? Primarily, one of the biggest two reasons, actually. It wasn't about selling cars. It was about healthcare and pensions. And they had unfunded accrued liabilities to the tune of $25 billion. And that's why they went bankrupt. But for the president of the United Auto Workers to say that it's the fat cats, it's everybody. And it's all of his members that are affected by the stock market, and significantly.
Let me ask you this, though. Do you think it's going to stay in that place? You don't think that things are going to bounce back? Because I think that Eric has made a good point. The point that we've had the stock market go through bad times previously, and it comes back up. Now, I don't agree with the whole Trump derangement syndrome. I'm not buying into that. But you know what? Bad today, good tomorrow.
But it's poor leadership. It's self-inflicted. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, I think like last time, if we look at 2008, when we look at the mortgage industry, which was really the core of why everything collapsed, people were getting loans that couldn't pay the loans. The whole thing fell. It was the big banks were loaning to people money that they'd give them initially pay $1,000 a month, and then after a year they'd start paying $3,000. They'd lose their $40,000 down payment. The market crashed. When that crashed, people couldn't get loans for cars, couldn't get loans for homes, and that's when you see the stock market falling because of bad policy. I mean, you're seeing it now. I mean, self-imposed bad policy that, I mean, in such a short term, there's no real plan. There hasn't been any real forethought to it, and Trump has had to put the brakes on because he's losing support even among Republicans, and so he's put the brake on it. And look, people voted for Trump. They wanted more jobs. They wanted cheaper food. They wanted whatever. They wanted the end to the Ukraine war on day one. They wanted the end to the Gaza war on day one. You know, when you say he's doing everything he said, well, you know, he promised a lot. And on the other hand, I think a lot of people said, look, we didn't realize the tariffs were going to be so extreme. We didn't realize.
Those are the people I'm talking about.
Yeah, I mean, they're having buyer's remorse now, but it's
Absolutely.
you know, yeah, whatever. So
absolutely.
I want to touch on what Eric said, and I think that it's more than that. People wanted something different. That's why they chose. First, they wanted Trump the first time because they wanted something different, and then they thought he was a lunatic, and they voted for Joe Biden. But then they weren't happy with Joe Biden. But that's kind of the nature of the political process. I don't think Donald Trump imposing 100 whatever percent.
125, I think.
This is the issue. It was like when Joe Biden decided we were going to go to electric cars in 15 minutes. The world doesn't work that way. The world is you can't turn a battleship around, right? If we are going to supply the world with iPhones and trinkets that China's been supplying us with for 50 or 70 or 80 years, it's going to take 20 years. It's not going to happen in 6 months. It's short-sighted for sure.
Yeah. Well, all right. What else? I have another thing I wanted to raise real quickly.
Is it Donald Trump?
No, it's from Washington. There was a woman, Liz Oyer, who just testified before Congress. She was the head of the pardons for the Justice Department.
Uh-huh.
She was fired because, look, Trump doesn't want anyone in his way, and she's standing there as a career justice person who's offering ethical advice, which she doesn't have to follow, but she's following, offering it. They took her out of her. She was the boss of the division. They took her out of her office. They escorted her out immediately. They had guards there. Then, when she started getting publicity, they canceled her health care. And then, when they found out she was going to testify before Congress, they sent her a threatening note saying how detrimental and harmful that could be. And she, to her credit, did testify, but it's, sad.
Well, I have a problem with, because I'm a lawyer. We had a story locally where one of my colleagues was out at Metro Airport, and because he does the kind of work that he does, of course, he was stopped. He was questioned. They asked him for his cell phone. Listen, you can't dictate to people who they can work for and what kind of work they can do. And, you targeting people because of the kind of work that they do. I have a real problem with that. You targeting lawyers, that is a big problem. I also want to talk about a story at East Point about education, but I think that is ridiculous. It really is. And if people are okay with that, listen, it could be next. Go ahead.
Is that really what happened? I'm sorry, Eric had something there, but is that really what happened? If that is exactly what happened,
you think that it didn't happen?
I didn't say that.
I'm asking you a question.
I don't know. I'd be really surprised if the U.S. government targeted an attorney.
Well, I will say this: I got it in my email from the Wayne County Detroit Defense Bar Association. It was also in the Detroit News, the Free Press, The Bridge, and also Newsweek. So I would take it that it is true. And if you're representing people that are immigrants, if you're making sure that people's rights are protected, or whatever kind of work you're doing, if you're representing pro-Palestinians, You should not be targeted. And what they did was really illegal, demanding that they give him his phone. Listen, there's something that's called the United States Constitution. What about a search warrant?
Right.
What about a search
I
warrant?
don't have that much
They
information.
had him. They questioned him for over an hour.
Right. They detained him, I think, for 9 minutes.
Exactly.
Here's what
That's
the Border Protection Assistant Commissioner Hilton Beckman told the Free Press. These searches are conducted to detect digital contraband, terrorism-related content, and information relative to visitor admissibility, all of which play a critical role in national security. They're not denying that they detained him. They're saying, look, because of the
kind of practice he has.
The administration is now saying anyone, and they're doing it with law firms, big law firms,
Yes.
anyone who defends anybody against the government does so at their own peril. They're saying here that because he's, they've seen anyone anti-Israel, pro-Palestinian as pro-Hamas, and they make that leap. There are people in Israel, hundreds of thousands of people in Israel who've been protesting against the Gaza war, against the Israeli government. They're not pro-Hamas. And even if they were, you can be pro-Hamas in this country. It's okay, as long as you're not, providing material support to Hamas, which is illegal. But other than that, if you're protesting, or even if you say, hey, I agree with what Hamas did on October 7th, which I certainly don't, but I believe in people's rights to do it. And for an attorney to, the University of Michigan they're grabbing students out and yanking their visas left and right now because, they're protesting, they're pro-Palestinian or whatever, which is outrageous, because what happens next? Next, another president comes in and says, we hate people who are pro-Israel. We're going to start kicking them out. We're going to start
kind of like school boards, kind of like attacking people and spying on them because they're at school boards.
Absolutely.
So both parties do it. And Joe Cool said it. Do I think it's beneath, or I act like it's beneath DT? And absolutely not. That wasn't my point, Joe Cool. My point is it's a coordinated effort. Like the gentleman in Trenton was picked up when he dropped his autistic kid off from school. That was a coordinated effort. I need more information on an attorney was just passing through the airport and we're blaming that on Donald Trump.
He was traveling. He was going on vacation.
My point is, are you saying this is a coordinated attack on him, or they just decided to harass him? Because who's coordinating the attack?
You look at the big law firms in DC, they've told them basically, if you defend people against our administration, we're going to screw you. We're going to make sure it hurts your business. It's a concerted effort. And with, like I say.
So you say he's on some list or something? Is that what we're saying?
No,
how did they know who he was?
Obviously,
I wouldn't put anything past it. Queen B asked a question: was this the lawyer's first time being stopped at the airport? I have no idea whether it was his first time being stopped at the airport. But, as I indicate, I have a real problem with that. This is how this man makes his living. Listen, we represent people. A lot of us represent people that we may not necessarily care for, but we have to do our job. Listen, how would he feel? And I'm talking about the guy that I really didn't want to talk about. If he didn't have adequate representation when he was involved in all them doggone lawsuits, get the hell out of here with that nonsense. It's bull. It is bull.
Well, what happened to Tulsi Gabbard when she was traveling through an airport, when she was pulled off and she had the quad X's that they questioned whether she was a terrorist? That was the last administration. So we can talk. To me, she was targeted because people knew who she was. I just don't know who this guy is.
Jim, we can criticize. You raise that, and if there's no good reason for they did it, we should criticize. We criticize, and we can't say, yeah, it's horrible if that's clearly what it was all about. It's fucked up.
I agree, but I don't have that much information. I just find it hard.
You can't always be dismissive and say, well, it happens, so everybody does it, or whatever.
No, that's not what I said.
No,
I did
but
not say that. I'm suggesting that none of them, going back to what Joe Cool said, none of them are afraid to push the boundaries.
No, it's not part or.
None of them are afraid to push the boundaries to make their point. And if they did it to make a point, then shame on them, and they should face repercussions. My
Right.
question
And to
is,
Jim's point, Jim brings up a good point. What they did to Tulsi Gabbard barely made the news, but
We
because
talked about
people
it
are
on
so
Detroit
fucked
Black
up
and White,
about
though.
It made the news.
well, on black and
plenty.
white, I'm talking about national news. You know,
We
but because of what
national.
Donald Trump,
We
because
worldwide.
of what this current administration did to the guy coming back from wherever he's coming back, it's big news. MSNBC, CNN. The hypocrisy of politics just blows my mind. And we spending all this time talking about shit that's going on in the country, shit that's going on in other countries, but we got only 15% of black kids graduating able to read. I don't give a fuck about
What you can do. You can.
Israel. I don't give a damn about Hamas. I'm a black man. When are we going to fix the problems in America? When are we going to fix the problems in America?
Well,
The
I think
mayor, the
Eric,
governor. Hold up, Alan. The mayor, the governor, the president. Who's talking about black kids? Who's talking about education of black kids and the black
You
community?
are.
Eric Brown
Again,
is
no,
talking
I
about it.
am.
Eric
I
Brown
get
is.
less than a
Eric
damn
Brown
about.
is talking about it. He talk
You
about
know
it every
what?
time he goes on Detroit Black and White. If it's Wednesday, if it's Friday, if it's Saturday, he's talking
Somebody.
about it. And
Good
he's
for him.
he's sending it in a text message to all of us every day. So Eric Brown
At
is
the end
talking
of the
about it.
day, again, I get less than a fuck about Hamas, Israel, Jerusalem, Greenland. I'm an American. All this talk about what's going on in the other part of the world, how does that impact us? How does that mean?
All right.
Adding Canada as another country, how does that impact us? We
All
have
right.
our own
You want an
problems
answer?
in our own communities.
You want an answer? When this is happening,
I want to answer without you having trust derangement syndrome. Yes, give me
Eric,
an answer.
you let me talk. You talk. Let me talk. When we ignore little things like we say at the airport, that's none of my business.
That's
I'm not.
little.
Look, I'm saying, look, in World War II, the priest who wrote that little poem and said, first they came for the Union members, I wasn't a Union member. Then they came for the Jews and I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me and there was no one left to speak up for me. And that's what's happening here, Eric. If you want to be as myopic and say,
no one is that myopic, Alan. Where the fuck were you? Where the fuck were you when Jim brought up Tulsi Gabbard numerous occasions? Where was your outrage when it came to that? But you so fucked up in the head about Donald Trump. All you worried about what Donald Trump is doing. Where was your outrage when?
In all fairness, I'm the one who brought up what happened with the lawyer in at the Metro Airport. Alan did not do
up
that.
about Tulsi Gabbard. We talked about that, and I said if the facts are what they appear, that it's disgraceful and there should be something done about it. It's not.
You were not as outraged. You were not as outraged as Tulsi Gabbard's situation as you are now.
You hear only one thing. It's like we are the United States. We are made up of a group of many, many people. Look, when we got attacked on 9/11, they came to us. We got attacked on our homeland because why? Was our intelligence bad? We have intelligence overseas. We can ignore it and say, hey, it wasn't me, man. But, look, there's a lot of shit happening here, Eric. You know what? There's black people who get Social Security. There's black people who get Medicare. There's black people who get Medicaid. There's black people who are federal workers who got laid off. Let's not pretend that nothing matters. Maybe to
we
you,
are the United States. We are United States under conditional aspects. You take the crack epidemic, and then you take the opiate epidemic. Who was treated better? Who did they try and get help for more so than the crack epidemic and black people? What are they doing about education in black communities? So don't tell me we are the United States. That's bullshit, Alan. We are the United States based on conditions and the color of the skin. If you can't be real about that, then you have a problem. You might be part of the problem.
I think you're part of the problem.
No, I'm not far from part of the problem.
All right.
I'm far from part of the problem.
Okay. All right. Well, let's say this. If you're a part of the problem, what is the solution? Let's be part of the solution as opposed to being part of the problem.
Far too many people are myopic. They don't want to be part of the solution because they only see one thing one way. No matter what conversation we talking about.
Listen, in all fairness, Eric, people could say this. I mean, I think you're saying that to Allan as it relates to Allan. Am I right? Are you saying that he's myopic?
He's very myopic, in my opinion.
Well, people can say the same thing about you.
No,
Eric.
they can't, because I can run down a list of
Yes,
many.
wait a
I don't
minute.
just deal with
Please don't
education.
tell me no,
I
they
deal
can't.
with the
They
homeless.
can.
I don't deal with the
Yes,
education. I
they
deal with the
can.
homeless. I deal with college. I deal with college students. Ask how many people I have helped got jobs. Ask how many college students I've helped stay in college. So I'm not myopic. I am not myopic. I am not myopic.
Okay.
I'm
And
very
guess what?
versatile. I'm
Alan
very
says
versatile.
he's not myopic either.
I disagree.
And
And that's my
Alan
opinion.
says-
I
Eric,
disagree.
I don't, sorry, Eric, I don't shout out my resume and every good deed that I do like you feel you have a need to. So
No, what you do is shout out to negativity based on the shit you don't like. Donald Trump has you so messed up. Donald Trump has you so messed up. You can't see beyond. You can't see beyond anything else.
Listen.
You can't see beyond anything else besides Donald Trump.
Listen.
Hey, can we talk about our viewers?
Yeah, we're going to talk about our viewers, and then I want to talk about a story because it has something to do with education. It has to do with East Point. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that story. But Joe Cool says, well, they are destroying the Department of Education, so we are going to have to engage children outside of traditional ways. Queen Bee says a dope fiend is a dope fiend. She said, when white people get on opiates, it was a crisis. True. Vanessa,
Correct.
Eric is smart. Eric is kind. Eric is important.
Thanks, Part
Day Parlay.
And that's Part Work.
Says, hey, Detroit. Kenneth Paul asked, who delegates what's happening?
Kenneth does. Kenneth, what does he want to delegate? Come on, Kenneth. Tell us what you want to talk about. You're a partner. You're a partner with us on this show. What do we want to talk about? Is he talking about us, or is he talking about something bigger than us?
Edward
Who
Altman
delegates what's
says, Edward Altman was, first of all, he said hello, and he also agreed with an opinion given by Queen Bee. So let me ask you guys this. Did you guys see the story about a white superintendent who allegedly admitted to using the N-word and preventing Black principals from sitting together during meetings is now facing the 5th, not the 1st, not the 2nd, not the 3rd, not the 4th, but the 5th discrimination lawsuit in 2 years? So my question is, why in the heck are you, listen, people are so happy to move out of the city of Detroit and move into these suburbs. And you put your kids and you put yourself out here in these suburbs. And look what happened. Here's an educated person, a principal in the school, and this is the 5th lawsuit that this superintendent is facing for discrimination. That is outrageous. That is ridiculous. That is something that we all should be pissed off about.
And where is that again? Tell the story.
That's in East Point. That's in East Point.
Okay.
It's an elementary school, a Black elementary school principal is taking her school district and the superintendent to civil court, alleging that the district leader has made racist remarks and cultivated a racially hostile work environment against Black employees. Well, if you're doing that, how are the Black kids supposed to learn? If you're doing that, first of all, why in the heck does she still have a job?
That's a great
question.
Because
we live in the conditional United States of America. That's why.
Because what, Eric?
We live in the conditional United States of America. It's not the same for all people.
So here we go. If she's a superintendent, I would think that they would have a school board just like we have a school board here in Detroit, right? Now I'm just going to draw the parallels, right? Yeah. And the school board work for the people and work on behalf of the people. Why has the school board continued to allow this superintendent to work in that school district? The same
because
question
that school board is
in Detroit. Why?
That school board is predominantly white.
Say what?
That school board is predominantly white in East Point. It's no different than you have a superintendent. It's no different than you have a superintendent over a population in Detroit, 80+% Black people that don't even send his kids to schools in the Black district. So nobody's saying anything about that. And they're parallel situations. A white man don't think his kid is good enough to go to school in the Black district. East Point has a superintendent with a predominantly white school board. They go do what they want.
But not a predominantly white. But not a predominantly white children that's going to the school there at East Point.
I don't know what the percentage is.
I don't know what the percentage is, but because I'm out in those areas a lot, you see who's going to the schools, you see who's going into the courthouses on a regular basis. That's a problem. That is a huge problem. And I would think after five discrimination lawsuits, I would think that she would not have a job. That is just outrageous to me.
Well, what has the Civil Rights Department in the state of Michigan done? I'm sure they're brought to their attention.
And guess what? The Civil Rights Department is run by who? I know the head of the Civil Rights Department here in Michigan is. You do too, Eric. Why hasn't that happened?
Again, we live in the United States of a conditional America.
Jim, you don't have anything to say? Allan,
I just want to say hi to Whitney and Dorian. I think it's Dorian. Sorry, Dorian Denard. Double D out there. Thank you. Power Orgs. Queen Bee has always got some right on point. She talked about opioids versus other issues, maybe the crack epidemic. And, it was a different world back then. I think that when crime hit the streets, the government didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to address it. So they just started putting people in jail, which was really not the right strategy.
But Jim, the government did not know how to address the problem that they created. They created the problem with crack cocaine.
I agree. I don't disagree.
I mean, again,
I don't disagree.
Once opiates started affecting the people that looked like them, it became a crisis. I mean, a lot more people are dying of opioids overdose. I mean, we probably lost. We beat around the bush too often. Far too many people are afraid to speak truth to power, and they want to separate it as if there's a different thing. Queen Bee is right. They are both similar situations. The only difference with regards to why one was seen as different, people got help sooner, was the color of the people's skins that were impacted more by the opiate crisis. And if anyone if anyone cannot see that reality of how America has been since we've been over here in 1619, then America will never be a country that people are unified. I mean, I have been telling people all the time, read the book, Black Robes, White Justice. That book tells the complete story. Judge Bruce Wright was spot on in his analysis throughout the whole book. Black people face more severe penalties in the courtroom because of the black robes and the white justice.
Well, yeah, Derek Henry said crack wasn't a problem until it crossed 8 Mile Road.
Well, I can tell Derek that I was.
Well, they was coming from 8 Mile Road into the city and everywhere else. So
I was in a drug unit for 2 different drug units, a state and a federal drug unit, and it wasn't anything about 8 Mile because all the kids from the suburbs were going in Detroit to buy crack and later, more often, heroin. So crack, it wasn't about the location. Rent-a-rock was the famous saying, is kids would drive their daddy's car down to Ecorse or Rouge or wherever when they bought their crack and trade dad's Lincoln for, $100 worth of cocaine and then report it stolen. That was the thing back then. So my point is, Derek, crack is no more of a problem than powder cocaine, but there was disparity in the penalty for a long time, and that was wrong.
I agree with
that.
Then
we had a bigger issue.
Crack cocaine decimated a lot of neighborhoods in Detroit. A lot of the abandoned homes were bought up by crack dealers that set up crack houses on the east side with the Chambers brothers over on the east side. I covered that trial for the Detroit News in '88. And you just saw the decimation of the city. So neighborhood by neighborhood, crack was just eating up neighborhoods.
But it was the same kind of cocaine that they were sucking through a straw. So
right.
But it was cheaper. I mean, it was like crack. Instead of being cocaine was a wealthy. It was more of a suburban drug.
It was acceptable when it was in Hollywood, but it wasn't.
Fancy parties. But then when they reduced it down to crack, you could buy a rock for $5, $10 or whatever, it became easier to consume, and then people got addicted.
It really wasn't cheaper. You just got on smaller amounts that made you come back for more, and you spent.
Yeah, and it was addictive, highly addictive. So you got a lot of new customers that you normally wouldn't have had.
Land of Opportunity you talked about. It's a great book if anybody can find it, if they want to read about the difference between an opportunity. The story is the Chambers brothers could have been CEOs of IBM or General Motors, but their only path at the time coming from Mississippi, I think it was.
Arkansas.
You're right. Arkansas.
So
Right.
yeah.
A little town in Arkansas, right. And
Go ahead. I'm
no,
sorry.
their opportunity in their life based on where they came from and how they were raised was to go into an illegal business, and they were very good at what they did.
Yeah, they organized. I did a story after the trial where they were such good business people. I mean, they had payroll, they had pay at certain places, they had rules on the wall. No bringing friends to the crack houses. No talking. Blah blah blah. They were very disciplined. I mean, they ran like a corporation there.
And who wrote the book, Alan? Land of Opportunity is the name of the book. Queen Bee. Who was the author of that book, Alan?
Was that the
Land of Opportunity
by a guy named Adler? He was out of Texas actually. And what happened was after the trial, I wrote a story about how they were well organized as a business. Then the New York Times picked up on that, and then this writer saw the New York Times article and ended up writing a book. So
Marianna, Arkansas, right? They were very smart young men.
Yeah.
So I want to give a shout out to Janet Sulluck. She says, "True, Jim. My brother was one." Miss Sheila, she talked about without court stenographer in the court, there's no order, leaves room for corruption. Cashmere Monroe says, they're just getting here. Where's Adolph Mongo? We don't know where he is either. We have no idea.
He's a little under the weather tonight, it sounds like.
Alicia Dean says, good evening. I believe everyone knows it is never an issue until it affects you and yours. Dorian says, Dorian was a cabbie for Greater Detroit before and during the bankruptcy of Detroit. It was an eye-opener, the drug abuse, the homelessness, the beginning of the gentrification that took place. And Queen Bee says she's Googling your story.
Is it Billy Joe? He was the brains behind it. He was one of the younger brothers, I think. Billy Joe.
Joel, yeah, I used to talk to a couple of the guys. They called me after the trial. I would talk to them.
I find it very interesting. Talking about the Chambers brothers and the crack epidemic, I think it was for me. It's very interesting that they went after these guys. And I'm going to turn this. And I'm not going to turn it. It is a black and white issue. Where the hell did they get their supply from? Where are those people?
Probably from Colombia.
Okay, and where are those people? Where are the people that supplied them with that?
A lot of them are probably 90% of them are deceased because it was very violent. A lot of it came up.
Did they end up doing time
in jail? To answer your question,
did they end up doing time? I guarantee you, they did not.
Well, they were shipping.
For me, listen. It's real easy to paint these people as bad people. And I'm not trying to paint them out to be great people. But guess what? They had somebody supplying them. Okay? They didn't grow it in their backyards. So why we don't talk about those people? We don't. We talk about the Chambers brothers. We talk about Big Meech and all these other people.
Well, we don't know who.
Do they get their stuff?
I can tell you from covering at that time, there were indictments, federal indictments for Colombians, including Pablo Escobar. They were on actual American indictments. Some of those people were extradited, and we've seen some of the Mexican cartel guys, some of the big guys who have been extradited in the last 5-10 years. So they have been. I mean, why do we know the Chambers brothers? Because they dominated the drug trade on the east side.
I've always had a problem with that. Queen Bee makes a point. She says supposedly those people were in other countries, and I agree with her. Supposedly, I don't believe that.
Distribution network.
I don't believe all those people were in other. I just don't.
Well, let me explain something. There were distribution networks here. The Colombians had representatives here who were moving kilos. Look, White Boy Rick had connections down in Miami. He got, when he got back to,
who people are now painting him out to be some kind of hero, right?
whatever,
Now,
But it's still, Vanessa,
it's
to your
the truth.
point.
They pay him out to be some kind of hero. But I bet you the Chambers brothers, who's the guy who just got out? Big Meech and all of them.
Big Meech and Flynroy down in Southwest Detroit. But the issue is,
people. And guess what? They paid their debt. They went and did their time, and now they're out. I'm just saying, I have a whole problem with that. I had a whole problem then. I have a whole problem with it now. Listen, you're not just going to paint a picture about a set of people that happen to be brown like myself and not talk about the other people that were just, as far as I'm concerned, more complicit. And it wasn't just the Colombians. Stop it. Stop that.
Well, why don't you talk about the end user, Vanessa?
Well, go ahead and talk about where nobody's stopping you from talking about the other people. Look, the Curry brothers, they dominated the East Side. They did time.
They're black, right?
But again, Allan, oh my
They're
God.
out.
They're black,
They're
right?
out right now.
Here's the issue. They are black. The Curry brothers,
Yeah, I know.
the Chamber brothers, Flynroy, Big Meech, and Southwest T, they're black. Jim hit on it a minute ago. The powder users did not get close to the amount of time
Absolutely.
to black and brown people. And people say to me all the time about my disdain for Joe Biden. I get less than a fuck about Joe Biden. I get less than there about the Clintons, because the 1991 crime bill was directed at super predators. So they designated black crack dealers as super predators, whereas those that were bringing the drugs into the country, those that were selling and dealing the powder cocaine, they were not deemed to be super predators. And I say to this day, that was just another way for these bureaucrats to use the N-word by calling them super predators.
Well,
And if people can't believe it, and then you look at the disparity in the jail time.
Exactly.
I won't argue with that.
Wait a minute. On top of everything else, the other people make money off of making movies, and there's a media sensation off these very same people. They get nothing. And like your friend, you want to, what is his real name? Richard Rorschach. They want to pay him out to be some kind of hero.
Look, first of all,
I'm saying I'm talking about Hollywood. I'm talking about even people here. They treat him like he's some kind of rock star. Get the hell out of here.
All right. First of all, I think the crack cocaine laws, I think it was clear those were unfair. They were targeting, obviously, people in the black community there. It was wrong. But, and, look, these people, the drug trade in Detroit is predominantly black. That's, so when you talk about, and the suppliers, look, there's people in Colombia now, the Colombians now send to Mexico. The Mexican cartels they have a distribution center. They have people here in Southwest Detroit distributing.
You can't say that, Allan. You can't say it's primarily black, because what you're saying is
I'm saying the street level is still.
That's a better way to put it.
Primarily black.
That's a better way to put
it.
I agree. That's a better way to put it, because you're about to tick me off again.
So, Allan, what are Allan?
Let me finish, please. Can I finish?
What do you call the ones in the suburbs in the opiate crisis? I mean, come on, you're parsing words with regards to how you feel about the crack epidemic, but the opiate crisis is the exact same thing.
Listen, one of our viewers, Ira Todd. Hi, Ira. He says the Detroit Partnership, also known as the Detroit Mafia, an Italian-American organized crime group. Historically, one of the 5 families of the Midwest under the La Cosa Nostra, involved in drug trafficking, gambling, extortion, loan sharking. Notable figures: Jack Tocco, Anthony Zarrell, and Joseph Zarelli. Anthony Zarelli and Joseph Zarelli. the Highwaymen Motorcycle Club, an outlaw motorcycle gang founded in Detroit in the 50s, known for methamphetamine trafficking, weapons, and organized crime activity. At times clashed with, and it cut off. At times
Class
clashed
the
with, cut off.
probably
But
people in the city, but it's
No, he
you know,
eliminated.
I think eventually and Ira maybe can enlighten us more. I think eventually the Italians got pushed away.
They were at a different level for sure, but I
Yeah,
think
but
you need to
early
let
on-
people know who Ira Todd is, Alan, if you would.
right.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
legend, so.
I mean, Ira was a longtime investigator for the Detroit police. Worked all kinds, gang squads, homicide, special, investigation. So Ira knows, Ira knows his stuff. But yeah, it's a tentacle of things. It's not only. I mean, look, the supply. There is a show called Snowfall on Hulu where they talk about where the CIA was bringing cocaine into like Oakland and San Francisco and stuff like that to raise money for the Contras, and how much of it's true or not. But it was basically in the inner city. The black drug gangs were selling it. The CIA was, there were stories on this, and there were some disputes on the accuracy of it. But the story was that the CIA was bringing cocaine in to let crack cocaine be produced. And so, look, the drug trade it's all multi-layered. And the thing that bothers me is that this administration and previous administrations have talked about blocking, that we've got to do everything to wipe out the cartels in Mexico. But what about the demand here?
That's exactly the point, Alan.
Yeah.
I think that right now we're mad at China, right? We're buying China's garbage, right? The U.S. If you watch, I always joke, if you watch I'm about a half a mile from the Trenton engine plant, right? And you watch the people pull out of the union workers pull out of there and drive over to Dollar General and Walmart, you'd be shocked. They're buying it. They're making union wages, and they're buying the cheap shit from China. It's not China's fault. It's our fault.
Yeah. One of our viewers, Dorian Denard, says street level is ran by the cartels out of Oakland County now. It's not based in Southwest Detroit. It's being and has been gentrified.
Interesting.
That's an interesting. Very comment. Interesting. Yeah. Joe Cool says Gary Webb exposed that the CIA was at the heart of the cocaine trade in America back then.
And what's it called?
Go ahead, Eric.
Alan mentioned Snowfall. Snowfall was originally produced by John Singletary before he passed away.
Right.
And one of my frat brothers is his cousin, and he, asked him a lot about the research he did to, produce Snowfall. And to the last comment about the CIA, that's pretty point on what was relayed to me. And the CIA was the United States government and people that do not look like me and Vanessa. It was intentional. If you watch Snowfall from season 1 until it ended, that is probably second to The Wire with regards to how the whole system operated. And those of us that might know some of the Chamber Brothers and the East Side Flins and all those gangs back in the day, they pretty much can tell you that they were just the
soldiers.
They were the frontline managers.
Absolutely.
They were the frontline managers to the CEOs of the drug trade.
Absolutely.
And I think we're trying to make it seem as if, Black people were producing it. No, Black people were selling it, and Black people were the purveyors of taking drugs. And the arguments say, well, no one made them take the drug. That's a legitimate argument. No one forced them to take the drug. That's a legitimate argument. But under the same token, it was purposely put in urban communities for a reason.
Absolutely.
So I think he's saying there a lot of the dealers in Detroit, you could argue they were part of the middle management structure. Is that what you're saying, Eric?
Yeah, correct. They were middle management. They were not the CEOs and the executive senior directors of procurement.
Yep. Okay, there was something else that I want to talk about. I don't know if you guys were gonna pivot a bit. Did you guys see the story about the Detroit residents expressing concern over the concrete mixing plant near their neighborhood? And here's the deal: you had a mayor who made a side deal without even allowing it to go to council or anything to open up this concrete mixing plant, right? And after he made this deal, then they come in and and when I say then they went to council because they did what they wanted. They opened illegally is the point that I'm making. Okay. So now you have residents really upset because not just the noise, but the fact that all this dust, you talk about, again, as far as I'm concerned, that's environmental racism. That is a problem. People cannot even enjoy their homes. Their children cannot even go outside. They say that these particles they liken it to, if you're breathing in these particles, they liken it to asbestos in buildings and things like that. Now, the Maroon family, if Adolph was on here, I would ask him about this. The Maroon family are the ones that own this. And now you have someone who's running for city council again, who is trying to pass some legislation to try to get these people out of here because basically the constituents, the people who live in that neighborhood, their hands are tied. They can't get rid of these people. There's nothing they can do about it. And that's a problem.
So I'm assuming that's down in District 6.
Yes.
And that might be why she's being challenged for her seat, because she's running for re-election.
Well, she's been very vocal about it. And the residents are really upset. Scott Benson, and I agree with you, Queen Bee, they should sue. Scott Benson has been very active and vocal about it, but the residents are really pissed off about it. I just think it is terrible that you have these big companies, these people with long money. They could come into these neighborhoods wherever they are, is usually where you have, low middle class, poor people living, right? And you come in there, you're making all this noise, you don't give a damn about the environment, and you expect for people to thrive. That is ridiculous. That is, something to be outraged about. I'm outraged about that too. And I don't know, clearly y'all both, you, Allan, you're quiet, and so are you, Jim. I'm thinking it that you guys are not familiar with that story.
This is the ongoing story, or is this a more recent story? Because I know I'm not.
For me, I just became familiar with it this morning.
Okay, so this may have been a situation that's been going on for months and months. I mean, I saw a story on the news some time ago, but not recently. So
yeah.
I mean, it's separate from the new bridge deal, but it's in that same community.
Yes, and they do have a lawyer that's really working on it. He wants, I forgot the name of the law firm, but they want the cement plant to be shut down. Whitney Clark says we have the power and council just have to have the will. We will fight on every issue, and I'm not taking the same BS talking points. He says he's not.
So Whitney's telling us when he gets elected, he's going to have some courage to stand up to the people that need to be stood up to.
Well, like I said, they're trying to pass some legislation. Let's see what happens. But I do think that, you know what, is it a play to get people to move out of that area? If the people move out of that area, where are they going to live? You can't listen. If your house is paid for and you've lived there 40 or 50 years, right? And now you can't, your grandchildren can't even come over and enjoy playing in your backyard or anything like that. You can't even raise your window because of these dust particles coming into your home. And this may sound small to some people, but it really goes to the quality of life.
I'm only laughing because I'm reading the comments.
No, it goes to the quality of life. So is it a play to have these people move out of their homes and go elsewhere? And where are they going to go? Because you definitely can't afford to stay here the way the prices are here in the city of Detroit, especially in this area. Yes, Allan.
I was going to say, I'm not that familiar with the story about the cement factory, but I am more familiar with the Marathon Oil Company, which really made it untenable for a lot of people to live there. It was an environmental hazard. They have tried to buy out a lot of the homes to try to clear out the area, but it's still, some people didn't want to move. and I was reading a Free Press article maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, where people were sleeping sometimes with like a wet cloth over their face because the whatever was getting in their homes and making it difficult for them to breathe. So there's no question that a lot of stuff. Look, we get stuff dumped, I think, from Canada, like environmental hazardous stuff, into Michigan. From other states, we have some stuff being dumped here. Yeah, I mean, and we see this environmentally in a lot of urban areas where they have dumps and landfills and whatever, where they're dumping hazardous materials in there. And it is discrimination against people who are,
Well, where's OSHA at? That's my question. Where's the government? That's the government's role. You talk about a deal that the mayor made.
And nobody's really talking about it. And this is the same. I'm not trying to be funny. Listen, I think that when you're in leadership position, you're going to take the attaboys, but you're going to take the L's as well. How in the heck is it okay for you to make that side deal? It's illegal. It was an illegal deal. If you read the article, it was an illegal deal. But this is the same person who say, hey, I want to be your leader. I want to be the governor of the state of Michigan. When you're telling these people that live over there, that's lived over there forever, that they do not have the right, basically, too bad that your quality of life has gone down the tubes.
You could be killing people. You could be killing people over there.
A lot of landfills get the stuff Allan was talking about from Canada and other states are in more poor communities. That I guarantee you that they don't dump the same type of stuff at the landfill in Northville as they do in the one in Ypsilanti, and whichever one out there in Macomb County. I guarantee you Northville does not get the same crap as those landfills.
So
yeah, I don't know.
I think what we see, people who have more money can hire lawyers. People who have more money hire lobbyists or whatever to put pressure on local government. We don't see enough of that here locally, and really even around Michigan. It's not just Detroit, but in other parts where we're seeing environmentally hazardous stuff being dumped. It's like, we don't want that leaching into our water systems. And
you know what? This story will be a story that people are not going to talk about. Queen Bee made a point. She talked about the Flint crisis. That was a quality of life issue. People lost their lives because of this poisonous water. These people can get very ill because of these dust particles from this cement factory. For me, when I read the article, I was very upset about that, because that's not cool. First of all, it's not cool for you to do something that's illegal and you act as if it was okay for you to do it because you're the king. And two, you put people in a position where they feel that they are powerless, that they can't do anything about it. And I guarantee you, nothing probably will be done about it, and nobody's going to talk about it. The only people that's going to talk about it are the people that's here on Detroit in black and white.
And Flint will continue to be one of those situations where there's plenty of blame to go around, but the end result is they saw the people in Flint as expendable. And I think that's why the water crisis went on for so long before someone finally said something. Because by the time it came to light, a lot of people had already been sick.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people had already been sick. Again, it deals with quality of life issues and the value that America, a state, plays on the poorest of the poor.
Absolutely.
And just to be clear, I mean, it is a socioeconomic thing as much as, I mean, Flint is 56% black. So there's, it's just, but it's a poor city. And so, they take advantage of that. I mean, look, Rick Snyder, that's the problem with business.
The Maroons took advantage of that area of where they built that cement plant.
No question.
Okay? That is predominantly black, okay?
Predominantly I'm just saying that it's not only, it's in poor areas where people can be taken advantage of, where people aren't coalescing together to work against the government. But one of the problems with Rick Snyder is that when you put a business person in and they only the government is here also to provide services. And if you look at government as only providing or generating revenue and stuff like that, like in Flint, they did to save money. They started using the water from the Flint River.
But Allan, we got to be very careful when we talk about Flint. People need to understand that the decision was made by people that look like the 50% population in Flint. It wasn't just a governor. Those city council members are black in Flint. They made the decision to change out the water. I think people put this blame on whoever's in leadership or the leadership role. Rick Snyder was not alone in that decision that fucked up Flint.
Well,
wasn't it the emergency manager who was also
right, emergency manager who was black, as well as the city council people.
Listen, it is 9:30. We've had a very spirited conversation tonight. Of course, we missed Adolph this evening. We will be back on Friday evening at 8:30 p.m.
I got a quick question.
Enjoy, subscribe. Yes, Allan.
I got a quick question, and maybe Eric can answer this. When you say the city council, when there's been an emergency manager, really the emergency manager has essentially made the decisions on what to do in terms of business and stuff like that.
No, in Flint, the decision was made before the emergency manager came in.
Right.
Then the emergency manager came in.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Thanks to everybody. Kenneth and Queen Bee.
Right. As somebody said, salute to Eric Mays for fighting for Flint. Yes. And salute to those people that are on city council that are genuinely fighting for the people that they represent.
Well, we don't know. Ain't nobody fighting yet.
Thanks to everybody for making the show.
We'll be back on Friday at 8:30. All right. Bye-bye.